Your business data is critical. It's growing at astronomical rates. It needs to be always protected and instantly recoverable. Veeam is modernizing and scaling to meet the demands of your business and your customers. Data must be available when and where it is needed. With Veeam Cloud Tier, scale infinitely on premises and in the cloud. With Veeam Cloud Mobility, move physical and virtual workloads to the cloud and back, integrating directly with existing enterprise applications. With Veeam Data Labs, leverage advanced data governance in order to meet your compliance and security needs. From the company that has pioneered groundbreaking product and features, we continue to redefine data management on premises, in the cloud, and beyond. We understand your and your customers' needs and are working hard to stay ahead of that curve. With more than 350,000 customers, including over 82% of Fortune 500 companies, and a vast ecosystem of strategic partners located globally, we are the #1 provider of solutions that enable cloud data management. Our solutions offer the simplicity, flexibility, and reliability you need and your customers deserve. Cloud data, backup for what's next. Veeam.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President Product Strategy, Danny Allen.
Welcome, everyone. It is great to be here. Who is excited to be here today to talk technology? Woo! This is my third VeeamON, and the most exciting part of the whole year for me is actually being at events like this and speaking to customers, speaking to partners. But I actually have a special affinity to organizations or folks who've been here, and this is the very first time that they've ever been to a VeeamON. Who here, just round of applause or hands, has been here? This is the first year. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are actually the ones that drive this conference. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the Veeam technology vision, and I think we have some pretty exciting things to share with you today. So in order to tee this off, everyone gets on stage at these events and they say, you know what, data's growing and it's moving to the cloud and it's becoming more critical. That's true. It is growing, and we could talk about that. People are tweeting right now, I'm sure, and taking pictures and saying, who is this guy up there? However, what I wanted to do is actually share with you a personal story of how data changed my life a little bit in 2018. Because everyone has a passion, and I would argue that data is going to change and improve your life and your passions. So back in 2013, I read a book. I'm not going to talk about data growth. I read a book, and I love scuba diving, and this particular book was about a wreck that was lost off of Boston it was April 23rd, 1945. It was the last US Navy warship in the Atlantic Ocean. It was off Portland, Maine. The book is called Due to Enemy Action. So I was reading this book, and this ship was lost, and it was a very fascinating story. There was a cover-up associated with the book. No one had ever found this wreck. No one had ever determined, was it sunk by a torpedo, or did a boiler explode? There was a fascinating backstory to it. And I did what any normal person would do. I said, I'm going to go find that wreck. And so I went out and I bought a proton magnetometer, and for 3 years I was out in the ocean towing lines from my boat looking for that wreck. And we generated not just gigs, but a massive amount of data. I can show you in Google Drive, still have that data. 3 years, didn't find the wreck. So then I thought, well, I know other people have looked for this with a side scan, but they couldn't possibly be experts at using a side scan sonar. I would be the expert, or the group, 3 other guys and myself, at finding the wreck. So we bought a side scan sonar, and you know what we generated? Gigs of data. You know what we found? Nothing. So sitting in front of a computer back in the winter of 2017 into 2018, we had all of this data. We couldn't find the wreck. There was eyewitness accounts, but no one could find it. And I thought, you know what? what if we already have this data? What if it's not a matter of using magnetic resonance of the field? What if it's not a matter of doing side scan imagery because the bottom of the ocean off Portland, Maine is up and down? You can't tell. There could be a wreck sitting there and you can't tell because of the ridges and canyons, topography of the bottom of the ocean. So sitting in front of a computer in 2018, 75 years after this wreck was lost, you know what? We found that wreck. Not out on the ocean. And we actually, so our motivation was two things: to find the wreck and then to answer the mystery, which is what this book is about, Due to Enemy Action, of was it torpedoed or did the boiler explode? Because there was huge ramifications. The sailors on that boat were actually blamed for a boiler explosion. So why do I tell you that story? So we found the wreck and answered that mystery. But why do I tell you that story? We had the data that found that wreck since 2004, I believe it was collected. Might have been 2003. It wasn't actually my data. It was someone else's set of data that we overlaid with our data to actually find the wreck. And so data is not just important for finding shipwrecks. The data that we're collecting today, I would argue, is going to do things like eradicate disease in the future. It's going to address climate change. We don't know if we already have the data to solve some of these problems. And you know what everyone in this audience does? They collect data, they protect data, they can unlock that data for some of the things that are happening in the future. And so while it's true data is growing and exploding, your passions can actually be addressed and solved by unlocking the data that we already have. And so the Veeam goal, our vision in all of this, you heard it from Ratmir this morning, is to be the most trusted provider of backup solutions that enable this type of cloud data management. Now, there are two words on this slide that I care about. Well, there's only two words. The first is trust. We have 350,000 customers, and more importantly, we have the people in this room that are helping us build these solutions and addressing the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis. The second word is backup. Now, it's interesting. Some people say, backup? You're really going to highlight the fact that you do backup? That's boring. And actually, I had an interesting conversation last night with someone at an event. They said, have you ever read the book Sapiens? They said. And I had not read it. And they said, if you're reading the book Sapiens, apparently it's a well-known book. He said, in that book, 3,000 years BC, they were doing backup of taxes onto clay tablets. That existed 5,000 years ago. My first job, not quite 5,000 years ago, we were doing mainframe backup, and then we did physical system backup, and then we did virtual system backup, and we're going to cloud. There will be cloud backup. There's going to be container backup. There's going to be Lambda and functions as a service backup. It's an industry that has longevity. And it's an industry that is critical to unlocking the mysteries of tomorrow. And so our goal is to be the most trusted provider of this backup. And so what do we focus on? We focus on three things. You've heard this over and over again, and I'm not going to belabor these points because I know we want to get to the second part of this presentation where we actually show you some of this. But simplicity, reliability, flexibility. Why does simplicity matter? You know what the enemy of availability is? You know what the enemy of making sure that your business runs is? It's complexity. Every time you introduce complexity into your organization, it slows you down. And so we focus on how can we make this the very simplest model for our customers to be successful. Secondly, reliability. If you have a system that only works on premises, you are not future-proofed for where your business is going. If you only have a system that works in an appliance form factor, you don't have the flexibility to address robo or cloud or all the different models of infrastructure that we have today. And so reliability across all of these types of infrastructure is what gets us up in the morning. And so flexibility, the ability to allow you to choose your storage partner, your infrastructure partner, your cloud of choice is what differentiates Veeam. And so what is our platform? And we went through this last year. These are the same foundational components of the Veeam availability platform. So the heart and soul of this is backup and replication. Take a copy of that data. And if you have a copy of the data, then what we want to do is to ensure that you can make copies of it to help the business move faster. We call that data labs. Underpinning our platform are all of the APIs. Now, it's interesting. If you go back, Ratmir had a slide this morning, and it showed 2013 up to 16, where we added storage integrations with NetApp and HPE, and there was 2 or 3 logos. But after we added the universal storage APIs, IBM, Lenovo, Infinidat, Huawei, Fujitsu, Pure Storage, just one after another that enables that flexibility that you want. And then, of course, on top of this is an orchestration layer. Now, I personally am very passionate about orchestration. I get very frustrated by slow-moving organizations. And if you can orchestrate data movement, if you can orchestrate recovery, then you can react as a business faster. And then, of course, on top of this, we have our monitoring and reporting capabilities that give you the visibility that you need. Now, this spans, people think of Veeam, they think of our capabilities in the virtual world. And it's true that we have dominated in that space for 10 years. But we not only do virtual, you know this, we do physical, we do SaaS, we do cloud. And if you dive into those, what you'll find is that we continue to add not only the depth of integrations and technical integrations, but we continue to add to that portfolio. And so if I'm back here next year, hopefully then I'll be able to say, hey, we've added here, we've added here, we've added here. But this platform, we believe, has longevity. And it allows us to deliver on 3 different outcomes that we focus on in the product strategy group. And it's important not only to highlight what we do focus on, but on what we don't focus on. So data availability is number 1. If you can't back up and protect and recover your data, then you're missing out on the foundational, the first step in this journey. So availability. The second is data agility. I know that the cloud infrastructures first were delivered, if you go back 10 years, we saw the first clouds begin to emerge in a meaningful way. But right now, organizations are only now beginning to adopt the transformation and the adoption of these clouds as it's recognized, hey, I can use this for elasticity or a geographical footprint that I didn't have in the past. Or especially when we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and look into the future, those types of concepts can only be unlocked through the computing power and scale of the cloud. And so making sure that data is agile and can be unlocked from the infrastructure on which it sits is a core tenet of what we believe in, data agility. And then lastly, of course, there's business acceleration. Now, business acceleration really is about, you have a copy of the data. Imagine if you could give that to your compliance team so that they could do GDPR analytics. Or I give it to my security team because they want to do penetration testing or forensics. You can imagine if I come out of the security space, so I get excited about this stuff. I apologize. But you can imagine if you're testing invasive tests on your production system, guess what happens if there is a double decode, single quote, encapsulated injection attack vulnerability? Crashes the system. And so if you can do those types of analysis on copies of the data, you can actually move the business faster. The same is true for IT operations, patching and updating. The same thing is true for DevOps. If you can give your developers copies of the data, on-demand self-service, they can actually deliver the services that they need even more quickly. And so our goal is to do data availability, data agility, business acceleration, and what excites me for the future is the intelligence that can be applied to this. I was having a great conversation with Tad Brockway, who was on stage earlier today, about some of the capabilities. And we're beginning to see a little bit of this, applying intelligence to a world that is begging for this. I have a customer over in Wellington, New Zealand. They use an IoT sensor to automatically fail over if there's tremors. They want to fail over to a region where there's not an earthquake. Or if we're here in Florida, if there's a hurricane coming in September, it's probably a good idea to apply the intelligence of that weather feed to move that workload. And this applies to all aspects of the business. It's not just disaster recovery and business continuity. It's about cost optimization. It's about enabling the organization to be smarter. Just take something really simple like data backup. I was talking to a customer yesterday who was storing 30 years worth of data. Imagine we could be more intelligent about what we should store and also how long we should store it. And so applying intelligence to availability, agility, and acceleration is a key focus for the future. And we believe that this is a journey. Last year, and I'm not going to go through this in depth, but last year we talked about the 5 stages of cloud data management. And the first step starts with backup. Because if you can't get your data, you can't actually unlock it and do anything with it. And so the first stage, obviously, is backup. But then we go to cloud mobility. How do I move things between clouds? How do I get visibility across my organization? So I always tell people there are 3 things that you need to do in this journey. The first is start with backup. And I would argue and surmise that certainly everyone in this room probably already is doing backup. Step 2 in this is recognize that it's a journey. You're not just going to wake up one day and all of a sudden your business is moving at lightning speed. It's a journey. And the third thing is you should pick a trusted partner on this journey. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the follow-on part of this keynote when we talk about our Veeam cloud service providers, because having a partner not only at the technology level, but also at the services level is so critical to this journey. Starts with backup, it's a journey, choose a trusted partner. And so last year, I was criticized for having a keynote that was full of fluff. No demos, nothing to show. So who here wants to see some demos? So we sell to a technical decision maker, and we are going to do some demos. In fact, as a keynote presentation, we're going to actually do 8 demos over the next 70 minutes or so. So thank you. Was that a Vanguard that I heard the cheer from? How many Vanguards in here today? Excellent. So we're going to do some live demos, and we're going to focus in the first part of this on the products that we already have today. You may not know this, but actually since January 1st of this year, we have launched, I should know this from before, 5 new products since January 1st. There's been Backup and Replication 9.5 Update 4, Veeam Backup for Office 365, Veeam Availability Console, Veeam Availability Orchestrator launched today, and Veeam Powered Networking. So what I want to do is I want to show Veeam Availability Orchestrator first, orchestration. I'm going to demonstrate Veeam Availability Console and why that matters to you, and then finally, Veeam Backup for Office 365. All of these things generally available today, and what I want to do is highlight our differentiators. And so the first of these, I want to start with the one that we launched today, Veeam Availability Orchestrator version 2. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Veeam Availability Orchestrator, but there's 3 really key value propositions with this orchestration product. Ignore version 2 for a moment. The first value proposition is it allows you to do really rapid recovery reliably. The second is that it allows you to do automated testing of your environment. Remember I talked about all the different use cases unlocking data? It allows you to do that. And the third thing is it does dynamic documentation. And so what we're going to do here today is we're going to highlight 2 really key capabilities: fast recovery and enabling cost-effective recovery. Now, why do I focus in on these 2 things? In the past, when we orchestrated for business continuity and disaster recovery, we based that off replication, right? I had production system here, replication, and I would orchestrate the recovery. You're paying for 200% capacity. So the exciting thing that we have done in version 2, that probably the primary thing that I'm excited about, is we can orchestrate that same type of recovery from a backup. That makes it far more cost effective. And instead of doing replication for your top 5 to 10% of applications, you can actually orchestrate recovery from all of your systems. And not only that, you can set an RTO and an RPO and then measure against whether you're meeting them. And so in order to demonstrate this, what I'd like to do is introduce our Senior Director of Product Strategy, Rick Vanover. Rick.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks, Danny. And VAO V2 just went GA today, and I'm actually going to start with a problem. And this is a slight change of plans. I sent a message this morning to my team, hey, host 113 is acting up. We actually had a problem in our environment, and believe it or not, VAO caught it. And what I mean by that is we had a situation where one of these plans failed. I usually always start with everything green, but I'm going to explain that in a second. This is VAO's dashboard. This gives you a really good look at what goes on with your orchestration plans. And when Danny mentioned that they have the new capabilities here, this really will allow anyone who's using Veeam to have a really good orchestration plan for both their replicas existing and their backups. So I'm going to walk you through this real quick. I'm actually going to make a new recovery plan, and I'm going to give it a name. We'll just call it Tier 1 Apps 12-hour RPO. Now that should loosely align the expectation that you might have with your business, and I've copied and pasted the description there, but you always want to have really good information in there, and the logic is that that's going to help build your reports so that they are really complete and they have all the information you need. And I'm not going to put my phone number in there. I trust you, but not that much. But basically, we'll put that in there. And this is where it starts to get really awesome. I'm going to build this orchestration plan one of two ways. The Veeam replication engine, think of DR, think of failover. But then I'm going to build it off of Veeam backups. That's this restore option. This restore option, which I'm going to select here, will allow me to take the backups that I'm already doing and, one better, restore them to where they came from, or maybe a different location. Now, I've actually done this on purpose, and I've put one of these locations as being suitable for instant VM recovery. So our high-speed recovery technique, booting from backups. Maybe that second environment isn't quite, doesn't have the legs for it. I can build my plan around it, and it gets better beyond that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the original location because I do know that this environment is ready to go. You might remember that I selected that 12-hour bit. I've built an application, a Tier 1 app, 12-hour. The right enterprise thing to do is use vSphere tags. That's what I've done. There's a handful of VMs in there. I'm going to go ahead and add it. Now, when you think about my backups that I have, what more can you do with this, right? With VAO, you actually can build your recovery plan from the backups, the restore plan, and build that in conjunction with how you've sized the environment. So in this particular environment, it might be spec'd out for 10 concurrent instant VM recoveries, which that makes sense. If I have general purpose disk in this environment or such, I think I could do that, maybe more, right? And then on top of that, you can also drop in your vSphere tags. Again, yet another thing to do, a good thing. I do know that this particular app has some SQL Server, so I'm just going to throw this in there, as long as many other application types, as well as the ability to put in your own custom checks. Chances are, if you have a process that you have to verify anything, you can automate it with VAO. Now, the last thing that goes along with this, and I think this is something that I want to really think about. DR has this capability, but with the backups, this capability exists as well. Once I've restored, whether it be a DR failover or from my backups, that becomes now production. I'm actually going to preemptively make sure that this is protected. No, how about protected? So I have the 12-hour template job already set right there. So I have all of my different service levels represented. And let's go ahead and go with it. Now, this is Danny's favorite feature. I think he told me 5 times to hit this, but this is the target RPO and the target RTO. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into 12, but the logic here is once I've taken my backups, I want to ensure that this recovery time objective, 1 hour, instant VM recovery, that's no problem. Recovery point objective, 12 hours, that's what my business is good with. And this is not just a day one thing. Every day this is going to check. So the moment that the application grows or it scales out, is all of this stuff going to fit? This is going to catch that for you and report on it. So all of that being said, I'm going to use my custom template, which is something that I have in place already. Every day, I'm going to check to make sure everything's ready to go, and that's what failed on me this morning. I was sweating right before we had our meetings this morning because there was a problem with my report. I decided to leave it in there for this very reason, because VAO caught an issue with my infrastructure that was going to inhibit the existing report that was already made. That plan, it was going to inhibit its ability to be restored. So I've made this plan. Let's go ahead and launch it. It's now the 4th one in there. And when I have all of my plans here, what you can also do is check your plans to make sure they're running as you would expect. Now, I've launched one just before we started here, and this is one of my favorite small features. That's actually a big deal. When I was talking to Alec about this, is that when I'm running a data lab, if I have, say, a virtual machine that's in the mix, what I've actually got here is a built-in console that'll actually let me see what's going on. So if you've ever played with VAO, you don't have to switch back and forth to the vSphere console and back and forth. You can have that right inside of VAO. Completely, yeah, I'll clap to that. And you'll learn a bit about certificates along the way. So we'll leave it at that. So the long story short here is that this will save you a lot of time back and forth. Now, what can you do with this information? I've got a restore plan. I've got my test environment with the data lab. All of my different tips here are the different things. By the way, you can turn on this new little contextual help that will, right where you need it, give you not just the information about this capability, but if you want to, you can even like jump in and get more from the Help Center, which is the best website on the internet for sure. But anyways, with all of that information, I want to go look at those reports. Now, I mentioned that something did not go as expected this morning, and you can see some of that right there. Again, we had a host go offline. HA takes care of good things of bringing the VM back on, but the cluster, the target, did not have what it needed based on the plan to restore. So if I look on page 5 here, what it actually tells me is this is not ready. So this is proactively getting in my face and saying, your established plan that was successful every day before the general session demo was fine. Got me on edge. But no, it's all good. We sorted the issue out. Thank you, Anthony, for helping me with the host. And when I can look at this report, you can see exactly why. If I go and look at the 9th page, that particular plan had 6 VMs, not in good shape. It gave me that information proactively. And then when I go into page 13, I can see exactly why. You could see that down here at the bottom, the host was unavailable. So that matches something else that I should have caught. You know, why was that host not available? You know, we sort it differently, but what happens here is that affects my apps, and I put that very visible for me. So in a good, perfect world, which that has been fixed, by the way, what I can also do is see that these reports also do what I like to say. They bridge the gap between the business language of your application. So I have this application, I call it Silicon Lift, to what your infrastructure is. So your business knows their applications. They know Silicon Lift or Helium Run. I like to make names up like that. And you can put your own documentation, your own images in there, very customizable. So it bridges that gap. But then as you go deeper in these reports, you'll see that it also will go into telling you then your specific hosts, your VMs, your networks, and the most important part right here, that this restore point meets the desired RPO. And I was able to not just have my backup done within the recovery point objective, but when I test the data lab, I'm actually going to ensure that the instant VM recovery, and in this last line example here, migrating it back to production, I have a complete sense of how that application is going to be restored, and this is verified automatically every day. So I'm actually really stoked about VAO, Danny, and this is all running from backups.
This is awesome. Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
So if we can switch back to the slides, one of the things, the reason we showed you this was the how we do Veeam Availability Orchestrator. But why do we do this? We do this so that we can give you fast recovery for all of your applications, not just replicas. And so we give you fast recovery, and we lower the price by doing it off backups. So that was the first demonstration. Pretty good? Yes. All right, so the next thing that I'd like to talk about is Veeam Availability Console version 3. So for those of you who are not familiar with Veeam Availability Console, it was a product that was designed exclusively for Veeam Service Veeam Cloud Service Providers. Now you might say, why are you talking about Veeam Cloud Service Providers when this is an end user conference? This is the reason. This was a multi-tenant, multi-repository system designed for organizations who can, and I would argue, should be helping all of our customer base, because they have specific expertise not only in how do you get your backups into the cloud or how to do your replicas into the cloud, but they also have specific expertise of after you move to the cloud, how do you design that? How do you set up the networking? How do you set up the storage? How do you set up the access controls? You know how many security events exist because people send things to the cloud and they don't lock it down? Or they move things over without actually giving thought to how data flows occur between multiple locations. And so this was a product built specifically for them that we continue to iterate on. And I encourage you to go and visit the VCSPs out on the show floor. But version 3 really brought 2 new innovative concepts to that platform. One was, in the past, prior to version 2, there was the Veeam Cloud Service Provider, and then there was the end customer. It was a 2-tier system. And one of the things that we thought was, wouldn't it be great to connect those cloud service providers with the managed service providers who can resell this and add value-added services. So rather than a 2-tier system, it becomes a 3-tier system. And it allows you to interoperate and to work with the partners that you know and trust today, especially as we move towards a cloud data management world. The second thing that we added in this is much more powerful reporting as well, both for the service provider, I shouldn't say both, for the service provider and the reseller, and for you, the end customer. And so in order to show this, I'd like to introduce our Senior Global Technologist, Anthony Spiteri.
All right. Thanks, Danny. All right, guys, so like Danny said, this is an end user event, but what we wanted to do, we can't really show the power of this without going through those particular tiers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through each one of the tiers, go from the VCSP to the reseller to the end user, and do a very quick show as to what features we've put in version 3. So firstly, what we're looking at here is what the VCSP can see. And the first thing I want to point out is that we can totally brand this as per the VCSP or per the reseller. You can see here that I've got a custom little graphic here. And for those that know me quite well, you might notice a Jumpman icon there. I love my Jordans, so I've got to get that going as well. So once the VCSP comes in here, they've got a holistic view of everything that they control, every reseller, every company. So they can see all the company names, they can see how many backup agents are running, how many protected VMs are running. But more importantly, in version 3, what we added was the ability to connect up multiple sites, okay? Now, prior to this, what happened, it was a one-to-one relationship, one VAC server per one Cloud Connect, okay? What we've done here is given a VAC server the ability to connect to multiple Cloud Connect servers. Those Cloud Connect servers then become sites, and then we can get a lot more granular with regards to the VCSP and the reseller in terms of what they can see and what they can ask their customers to see as well. Not only do we have that, but the reseller tier that Danny talked about now allows us to get a holistic view and dropping down exactly what's going on. So we can see here we've got 2 particular resellers, and then we can see the companies that belong to those resellers as well, okay? So a lot more granularity in terms of what they can view. The resellers is configured in this particular section down here. So if we look down here and go through Go, let's actually uncheck that. There we go. So you can see the resellers there, I've got 2 configured. Over here is where we actually allocate those particular companies. So obviously as we add companies, we can then allocate them to a reseller, they can manage them themselves. But they're able to actually add that in their own reseller portal, and I'll show you that next. Danny talked about reporting and licensing. That's something that's massive in this feature. So what we're talking to our VCSPs about is ensuring that VAC becomes a single pane of glass for the reporting, okay, a source of truth. So if I go down here to licensing, we can now go and have a look holistically again at what's happening across this instance, across all connected Cloud Connect servers, but also across all backup servers that might be connected in this particular tenancy. And the really cool thing here is that we can also check out Veeam backup agents, because obviously Veeam Availability Console was thought front of mind as a mechanism to deploy Veeam backup agents through Cloud Connect without the requirement to go and actually connect to a network. We all do it through Cloud Connect. So the other cool thing here, multiple Cloud Connect servers, we can basically install licenses keys as well. So one of the licensing features, which is always a bit of a pain for our cloud and service providers, now we can control that here. We can control it individually, or we can install multiple licenses across all of those that exist. So that's a really quick look at what the VCSP says. So now let's go and have a look at the reseller. And the first thing that you'll see is that it's slightly different in terms of the look. So what you're going to get is a different look and feel because the reseller themselves can come in here and actually configure that. And you see the color's different. You can see we've actually lost that little Jordan icon. It's completely brandable by the reseller. And what we're going to see here is a slightly, I guess, more filtered view as what we saw as the top line VCSP. The VCSP allocates resources to the reseller. The reseller can then reallocate those resources to their own customers. And as you can see here, we're only basically seeing 2 particular customers here. So what's important there is that they can see invoicing, they can see exactly how much their providers, or their customers are actually owing them. All this is accessible by a very good API as well, it has to be said. Not only have we built in these features into the console, we've got a very strong API. In terms of configuration here, we can create multiple porter users. Multiple porter users can basically access different companies and obviously as well control the accountability for that as well. If we have a look here in quota and usage licensing, we can see again what we've been allocated by the top level VCSP and what we're actually consuming. Usage reports as well, only that are relevant to our own companies. Okay, so again, you can see this is a very important tier. And once again, through here, as a reseller who's offering managed services and actually getting money for these particular services, I can control holistically the alarms, I can see jobs, but also as a reseller, I can go and actually install a license as well. So basically going install, pick a license file, and I'd be able to deploy that to the actual customer. So the final step is what the actual end user sees. And again, this is more simplified. Now, what the reseller couldn't see as compared to the VCSP was the actual core infrastructure. So the VCSP can configure Cloud Connect servers. The reseller can't obviously do that. The end user hasn't got the ability to allocate quota and all that kind of stuff. But what they can do is create locations. And if you think about this from the point of view of a company that's got multiple locations, okay, multiple on-premises locations, multiple distributed geographic systems, what they can do here is basically then go, okay, let's go and have a look at our VM data. We can see that across all of our locations, we have this amount of protected VMs, backup types, get some top-level information. If we go down to Singapore, over here, we can see that that dynamically changes. We can see exactly what's happening in that specific location. So if we go back on top here, again, we can see that. If we go to rules, or actually manage computers, we can see that we can see discovered backup agents, and you'll see a few errors there, which is always impressive in terms of what we have to actually fix holistically. We can see discovered computers, okay? Now this discovery is done via Cloud Connect. We don't need any special connectivity. All we need to basically do is deploy an agent to the remote Veeam backup replication server, and then we can see everything that's going there. We can manage the backup jobs and see exactly what's happening. In terms of the licensing here, again, what you get here is a very basic overview, slightly reduced from what the reseller could see. But again, importantly here, you can dictate the locations, you can create locations, allocate Veeam backup replication servers to them. But more importantly here, what we can do is then go create users. So you can see here I've got a couple of users. I've got an overall root user, I've got a global user, and then I've got an ANZ user. So if I click on the ANZ user, click on edit, you'll see that the locations here, I've allocated Perth and Sydney, and then when that user logs in, they can only see their location. So that's a very, very quick overview of VAC. You can see the power for the end user, but obviously for resellers, it's important, and obviously for our VCSPs, it's a critical piece. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you, Anthony. That was awesome. So that was the how, but why do we actually focus on Veeam Availability Console? We do that so that you can partner with your trusted partners in this journey that we're on towards cloud data management. We do this to make you move your business faster. So that was the second demo, and I'm going to have to start speaking more quickly because I realize my wife tells me every day I talk too much. But the next presentation and the next demo that we'd like to give is actually Veeam Backup for Office 365. So how many people in here actually use Office 365? Show of hands. The rest of the people are tweeting. Thank you. So Veeam Backup for Office 365 obviously is incredibly powerful and relevant and is used in many, many organizations. And so we launched in version 1, Backup for Office 365 doing Exchange. Then we added in 1.5, we added capabilities for those same service providers to offer this as a multi-tenant, multi-repository service. Version 2, we added support for SharePoint and OneDrive. But what we've done in version 3 is take two things that are top of mind for CIOs every day to get a better understanding of their business. The first is around authentication. We all hear about these ransomware attacks and security incidents. I got an email this morning at 6:44 from a friend who said, someone broke into my environment and encrypted all of my data, can you help me? And so authenticating, making sure that we have the security that is essential for CIOs and then giving them the data that they need to be successful is what we've added in version 3. And in order to show this, I'd like to introduce our global technologist, Niels Engelen. Niels?
All right, thank you, Danny. All right, so they gave me like 5 minutes and I told Danny, are you serious? 5 minutes to talk about the best product in the past few years? I'm very sorry, Anthony. VAC is cool, but let's be honest, Office 365 is just way cooler. Wow, huge fan over there. So basically what I did was I figured, okay, you're going to talk about two features. I'll just show how powerful the reporting is. Because it's about data, right? And Office 365, and especially VBO, the way we license it, for example, is the same Office 365 is licensed. It's on a per-user base. Now, Office 365, they've got their dashboard with all the information, and we basically did the same. So customers ask us, well, where are my licenses going? I mean, I bought 1,000 licenses, where are they? And there's a report now called License Overview, which basically gives you a perfect insight in what is in your infrastructure. So you know where those are, and let me zoom in a little bit on the report so it's more clear. So you get a small interval, about, for example, last month, we're talking about VBO 365. My company is called VeeamON, so yeah, makes sense. What you can see here is I have two organizations, and I use around 26 licenses. Now, you may wonder, okay, why just 26, and where is the rest going? You can see how they are licensed. Well, why is this useful? Well, for a service provider point of view, it's very useful because you can use it for billing, right? You want to sell those licenses that you, well, bought through Veeam. But for an end user, you also want to know what's going on. If somebody leaves the company, you can just look in here, see which license is still being used, and you can use PowerShell or an API call and revoke it and reclaim it for another user. So that's one way of handling all the data which is in Office 365. Now, talking about data, Danny was doing his story on how he found an amazing ship with a lot of data. As Office 365 users will know, data grows like crazy with an Office 365 environment. And the same is when you're doing backups. So there's a report called Storage Consumption, and this actually gives you perfect insight on how the organization is doing. And then you can actually pinpoint and fine-tune how you want to grow in the future. So again, let me zoom in a little bit. And again, you have the interval. So if you look at past month, you can see I'm using around 100 gigabytes of storage. I have several repositories. But what's more interesting is if I jump to the last page where my main data is, you can see daily change rate. And you can actually see how much data is being backed up on a daily basis. And you can actually see the growth of your repository. So it helps you in analyzing whether you're running out of disk space and when you need to buy additional servers or storage, or maybe migrate this part also to another cloud. If you want to go to a public cloud, I mean, you can run it anywhere you want. Now, I've been talking a lot about how you can analyze all the data and stuff, and we have pre-compiled reports, but maybe you want to do something more in-depth and you want to work more open. So VBO is a fully API-first approach-driven product, meaning it has a RESTful API, you also have PowerShell in there, and for those who are really into the deep tech, I mean, what cool would it be if I could do some API demoing? We got a solution in there through PowerShell, which allows you actually to analyze your organization, your Office 365 data, before you start backing it up. So to prep it ahead, I ran it already, but this command, for example, gives me insight in how much data is in Office 365. So before I even start backing up, I know how much I have to, buy and how much backup storage I have to provide to actually back up my organization. So in this case, it's around 60 gigabytes. I can probably go to Walmart and buy a hard drive and put it on there. Not the best for an enterprise solution, but hey, it's easy to use. So Danny, I know you love APIs. We've got it.
I do love APIs, and correct me on this, but you've written an entire application on top of this API set and put it on GitHub, is that correct?
Yes, it is available on GitHub. PayPal donations are always welcome. Thank you.
APIs, flexibility. We want to deliver these types of solutions to you. So again, this was the how, but why did we actually iterate on this? Giving you, our customers, better APIs, obviously, for this type of integration. Giving you improved security. You talk about an environment that needs improved security with multi-factor and two-factor authentication and better reporting. So now what I'd like to do very quickly is we have a customer that is using not only Veeam Backup for Office 365, but several of our products, and I would like to introduce him to stage. So join with me in welcoming Raj Perumal, CIO of Ducks Unlimited Canada.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, how are you, Raj?
Doing good,
Good to
doing
see
good.
you. So, apologize about that. My clicker wasn't working. We need backup for that, right? So, I grew up in Nova Scotia, and every summer I would drive home. I live in Boston now. You can tell from the accent, right? And I would drive up by St. John, New Brunswick, and I passed these huge wetlands with marshes and signs that said Ducks Unlimited.
That's right.
And I never really knew what they did. Can you share with the audience what Ducks Unlimited is all about?
Absolutely. So Ducks Unlimited, we're an 80-year-old organization. You may be familiar in the United States with Ducks Unlimited Inc. There's Ducks Unlimited Canada, and there's Ducks Unlimited Mexico. We're all sister organizations that work together towards the same mission, which is saving planet Earth, saving endangered species.
I just make software. You save the world?
That's right. Fighting climate change, those kind of things. So a lot of people have heard of Amazon rainforest, and as people say, they're the lungs of the earth. So we like to say that the wetlands are the kidneys of the earth. So they act to essentially stop overland flooding, clean water, basically the whole circle of life, so to speak. So they sequester carbon even, so they actually keep carbon out of the atmosphere. So these are things that Ducks Unlimited works to do.
Well, we're a green company. Does that count for saving the world at all?
A little bit.
Okay, all right. So we got something. So tell us about your role. What's your role at Ducks Unlimited?
Sure. I'm the CIO at Ducks Unlimited Canada, and my role there is to introduce change, essentially. So Ducks Unlimited is a very old organization, as I mentioned before, and we have a lot of old applications, a lot of old data. I was brought in to foster change to newer modern applications, to move to a hybrid cloud, and so on.
That's awesome. So obviously you're brought into a legacy environment. Were you facing challenges, or what are the challenges that you guys would face outside of Veeam? What are the challenges that you
Absolutely. So the Ducks Unlimited as a whole is a very science-based organization. So we like to make all of our decisions when it comes to the environment and biology, et cetera, based on science. And when I came in, the IT department was a little bit further from that. I mean, we were doing things, but we were still farther behind. So I thought, if they're doing that, if our PhD scientists are doing that, why can't we be doing that in IT? So those were the challenges there, specifically around lots of data. We have drone data, we have satellite data, et cetera, basically of the land. So we can actually see the changes in the land over time. So when we talk about climate change as an example, that's not change over just a handful of years. That's just regular weather. When we're looking at change as scientists, we're looking at in 30-year increments and more. So when you're talking about geographical data, which is imagery, it takes up quite a bit of space. We have to retain it all because the scientists can't get rid of it because they need it.
30 years worth of data.
And growing.
Store all of it. Wow. Well,
yeah.
One time that I'm glad I'm not you, I guess.
That's right.
In that, so how did Veeam help you? So you obviously were familiar with Veeam in the past. Is this your first VeeamON, or have you been?
No, I've been to many. I was at the first one, yeah.
Wow. So how did Veeam help you? What were you doing, and how do we help you in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So for other organizations I work with, we were huge Veeam proponents right from the early days. So I was very familiar with what Veeam could do. And the current backup software that we were using prior to Veeam, didn't really, cut the mustard. What ended up,
you can throw them under the bus, I don't mind.
Our IT administrators were spending, like over 40 hours a week dealing with all of our data sets. We do a lot of backups and restores in our line of work. So and when you're talking about huge data sets, if you're running a massive restore for a huge data set, and if it doesn't run, basically you've blown away your day and you got to start from scratch again over and over again. You can imagine how basically that one person just goes down a rabbit hole. So by bringing Veeam in, everything just works, as Veeam always likes to say, it just works. And we were able to actually free up that resource to go and do other things. So some of the IT work that we want to do directly in the land. We have this big initiative that we started called conservation technology. It's all about the technology we use in the wetlands and the environment. So we're currently working on 12,000 projects in 12,000 different locations across Canada, where we're doing wetland sensors and using the Internet of Things to monitor like water levels, humidity, fertilizer, all these kind of different things, right? And when the IT team gets to work on things like that, pull that data in, analyze it with like AI, machine learning, provide those insights to our scientists so they can do the right things to like save the planet.
Sure.
That's a better thing than just wasting your time backing up and restoring all day, right?
Backing up so that you can do more, really, is what you're talking about. Were you able to quantify the amount of savings that you were able to achieve?
Yeah, about $250,000 a year.
No. So that's great. What gets you excited about the future? If you look out, can you share with the audience the types of things that get you excited about the data that you're collecting?
Yeah, absolutely. So the more data we can collect, that gives us, once again, like I said, gives the scientists more information to predict things before they happen, like floods and other environmental events. And it really allows the IT department to align with the business as opposed to being just your traditional IT support department. So it's exciting times.
That's awesome. So one last question. I'm Canadian, and you're Canadian, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Just wanted to check. The Stanley Cup finals are coming up. There's only one sport in Canada.
That's right.
And I'm curious as to who you think will win the Stanley Cup. Now, before you answer, I just want you to know that I'm from Boston, and I don't want to lead the witness, but do you have any predictions?
I don't. To be fair. If the Jets aren't in it, I stop watching.
Okay. All right. Well, Raj, thank you very much. It was
Cheers.
great to have you. Please give a warm thank you to Raj Parimal. Thank you.
That way? Okay, thanks. Cheers. Thank you.
All right. So we have seen some really exciting things about what we have already. GA today, Veeam Availability Orchestrator, Veeam Availability Console, Veeam Backup for Office 365. But now I'd like to talk about some things that are coming in the future. And to do that, I would like to welcome on stage our Senior Vice President of Product Management, very well known to most of the people in the room, Anton Gostev. Anton? I love working with this guy. Can we share with them what we did last week in Amsterdam?
Can we share a clicker first?
Yeah, we can share the clicker, but okay, yeah, we should probably keep that off stage. What do you think?
Yeah. All right. So thanks everyone for coming. Many people asked me today and yesterday, Anton, when's your session? It's not on agenda. This is it. You're in the right place, all right? So yeah, and we had a challenge because, yeah, as Danny mentioned, we had a training, version 10 training for our pre-sales, and we want to enable them for the upcoming beta so that they're more efficient with beta. And it took us two full days, right? That's how many features just backup application and agents bring in version 10. And we only had 30 minutes. So we decided to show you a few features that we think best demonstrate how we basically improve our object storage integration, add support for new protected workloads, enhance your cloud mobility options, new APIs. So what we think is important, what we talked about today before, and just to demonstrate how we execute on our vision, right? So first, we'll start with cloud tier. And I'd like to start with just quickly, briefly explaining our journey in object storage support. So it's a brand new storage technology for us. That's why when we started kind of our journey into object storage, we decided let's start with the least important data, which is your backups that are not the current backups, but the oldest backups, right? And that's how we implemented this first version of our object storage support, where we allow it to tier, for you to tier your oldest backups to object storage transparently, right? And adoption of this feature exceeded our bravest expectations. We couldn't even predict anything like that, right? It was within months, petabytes of data in object storage providers. It's totally crazy, right? And we've also been very happy with reliability. You know, we feel that it's a good storage technology for your most important data. So now we're ready to make the next step and expand our object storage integration also to your most recent backups. And we're talking the same scale-out repository as it is today, so no changes. Same support for capacity tier, so for the storage and capacity tier, same object storage, public cloud, on-prem storage devices, doesn't matter. But what's new now is that on top of just having an option to move the oldest backups to tier those oldest backups and providing you this classical hierarchical storage management system, we also have an option to do the immediate copy, right? And it's not an or option, it's and or, so they can work in tandem. So you can do the immediate copies, and for some time you can have the backup sitting both in performance tier and in capacity tier in object storage. Then later, when backups age out, you can remove them completely from performance tier because you're not very unlikely to have to restore from them, right? But still keep them for whatever, 1, 2, 3, 5 years in object storage, right? Even if it's a different mode of how capacity tier operates, the benefits are still the same. So first, this new immediate copy mode is policy-based. So you don't have to manage your backup copy jobs like today. So all this complexity is removed. You just basically enable scale-out repository to mirror all the data to object storage, and it does it for you, right? Second, it's still transparent. We'll see it in a demo later today, but later in the session. But by transparent, I mean that we can service the restores transparently. If the performance tier is down, if something happens, data center explodes, we can service the restore transparently from capacity tier if performance tier is not available. It's still space efficient as it is today with the current mode. So when we offload backups, we offload them in forever incremental manner, so providing source size dedupe. So lots of disk space savings, especially when you offload periodic fools like GFS fools and so on, right? It is still self-sufficient, so everything in your production is destroyed. You install the new backup server, you import your object storage backups, and you can immediately, within 15 minutes, start restoring. So we have the copy of metadata in object storage, so it's self-contained backups is something that you love Veeam for, also stands true for object storage integration. And still no extra costs, no extra licensing requirements, so we still don't charge you for using object storage. We don't charge you any subscription and so on. It's just a part of the product. If you want to use object storage, you'll feel free to do it, right? How we achieve all these benefits? Kind of architecture slide, right? Just as a reminder, it's the same with copy as today with move, right? When we offload or copy the backups to object storage, we do it on a block level, so it's not the entire file copy. That provides us very great flexibility. Two important things here is that when we do offload the file completely from performance tier, we leave the stub file in the performance tier, and our product is able to work with such stub files in the same way as it works with normal files, so to service anything like all the types of restore transparently, even if the blocks within that file are stored in object storage. But it also works the other way, and the feature we call intelligent restore. Again, it's all available today. So when we do perform the restore, for example, we perform file level recovery, and we need to pull certain blocks from the object storage, we actually don't just go ahead and pull them. We actually look at the on-prem VBK file in the performance tier, the latest VBK file, and see if there are any matching blocks we already have on-prem, and we don't pull them from the cloud to dramatically reduce the cost of the restore and also improve the performance, of course. So, Danny, what do you think?
I think it's awesome, and I want to see it. So if I can hand it over to, again, our senior global technologist, Anthony Spiteri, to give a demonstration of this.
All right, thank you. And this is where it starts to get interesting, folks. This is a live demo, and hopefully it goes as planned. But again, we do things live here at the product strategy team. So what you can see here is basically a backup repository, all of the ones that we've got listed here. So you can see I've got one that's configured for Amazon S3. So nothing fundamentally has changed here with regards to what we released in Update 4. You still configure it the same way. What we then do, though, is when we go in the Scala backup repository, you can see I've got one configured here. And this one consists of that object storage repository that I had, and then 2 extents that are the performance tier. If I click on the properties, what we've got now here on the capacity tier is not only what we had in update 4, where we had the move functionality and the operational restore window, but now we've got this checkbox here, copy all backups to object storage as they are created. And that's literally what it means, all right? So with that checked, like Anton mentioned, as soon as a backup job finishes, it's gonna start this copy job, okay? Excellent technology, facilitates 3-2-1 rule, something that's really innovative in the space. What we're gonna do is do a little bit of a test of what Anton mentioned with regards to the resiliency of this technology as well. Before that, let's take a look and see at the jobs. So if I go down here, go to home, you can see we've got a couple of jobs configured. The sober offload job, which is the one that runs every 4 hours, that's for the move. Okay, that's going to base it on a few caveats. It's going to shift data from the performance tier to the capacity tier. But what I want to point out is this local offload now. And that local offload job basically runs as soon as the backup job finishes, okay? Does the copy straight away. And where we can see that in the UI is back up here. You can see now that we've got normal disk space and we've also got object storage, okay? And if I go back up here, you'll see that the restore points basically match. We've got 54 that live in the move functionality. In terms of what's living directly via the copy on the object storage, we've got 54 as well, okay? Now, what we're gonna do, I'm basically running a workload. So I'm running a website, it's running live. This is running on my local ESXi infrastructure. I've got a working ping to it, okay? What we're gonna do is simulate a failure of this, but before that, what we're gonna do to highlight the resiliency of the actual new feature is we're gonna go back into the backup replication console, we're gonna go back to backup infrastructure, and we're gonna go here and put these repositories here into maintenance mode. So what we're doing by putting them in maintenance mode is effectively simulating a failure, okay? And now what we're gonna do is attempt an instant Veeam recovery in this particular situation. So let's go back here, we'll go back to ESXi, we'll go to this machine, and we will stop that machine. So let's stop that. Hopefully we lose that ICMP ping in a little second. Let's have a look. Hopefully it goes, there we go.
Try this on production systems, by the way.
Yeah, don't do this. So yeah, like obviously now we've lost that machine, okay? So now we want to basically recover that machine. What we can do is basically go back to where we were, click on the backups, and we're actually going to not choose specifically the object storage copy, but we're actually going to choose the one that's the move function, okay? Just to show the power of all this combined. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on that machine and go instant Veeam recovery. And what we'll do is we'll go to a point in time, expand that, and you can see that yes, based on the move, we have data living locally on the performance tier, but a whole heap that are living on the object storage, okay? But what I'm gonna pick is one locally, okay? So if I click that one, go through this process. Now, this is important. This is what Anton was talking about with regards to the actual message. Your local backup files are unavailable. Something's gone wrong on the performance tier. We're gonna pull that from the object storage based on that copy, okay? So we're gonna click OK on that. We're gonna restore to a new location. So we'll just give it a different name. Okay, make sure the networking's all good. Click through. And we wanna obviously connect and power on the machine. This is gonna go off and start the instant Veeam recovery, okay, the patented technology that we have, which basically mounts the data stored directly to ESXi host, and it's going to stream that data. And again, we've been mentioned the fact that we can't find the backup files and performance tier extents. We're pulling it from the capacity tier extent. And while it's happening, you can see here that we're actually streaming data directly from Amazon S3, and that data is going directly to the host, okay? And actually, Andrew, I've noticed an improvement in the performance as well in this particular build over what we had in update 4, so something that we've worked on at the same time. Now,
isn't it mind-blowing, right? Instant Veeam recovery from the backup in object storage in Amazon data center, right?
Streaming through, it's amazing. Okay, so we're going to see here where the request is still basically timing out. If I go back here and search for the actual machines again, we should see that we've got the copy that's here, and it's going to be booting up. So let's go here, let's launch the console. And what we're going to see here is the machine booting up. Now, what we should see, if everything is working beautifully, is once it starts its initial boot, and don't forget, this is booting directly off the object storage, streaming data through, okay? So just think about that, what we're achieving here with this particular technology. So we should see a ping response come up any time. It's always interesting with the timings here. You know, we'll have the live demos. Let's keep it cracking. Let's make sure that we actually have got data streaming through. Here we go. Come on, there we go. All right, that's the first step. No clap yet. Oh, what do we say, Anton? It's all about the application.
Yeah, it's all about the application, right?
All right, so let's go back here. Let's refresh this. No, that's okay. Don't worry about that, because it's just going to come back. It obviously
I think it would help if people get off Wi-Fi. Right?
Yeah, get off the Wi-Fi now. We can go through. We might get a database error pop up. Here we go. Come on, anytime now. Takes a bit of time, but we're looking good. Are we still streaming that data? We are.
This
all
is
right.
like the jet at the end of
that's
the runway
second one.
with the brakes on.
We're getting into the machine. This next
It's all
click.
a part of the script. Wait.
Here we go. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So there are actually two applications. The web server now started.
There we go.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And just to highlight again, we had those performance tiers in maintenance mode, offload, but we still were able to get the data up. Amazing, Danny.
Thank you, Anthony. So I don't know whether you caught that, but that was an instant VM recovery streamed live from Cloud Object Storage. If it had been Azure Blob, it might have been a little bit faster. I don't know. Anyway, that was a live instant VM recovery from the cloud and powered up and on. So that wasn't the only thing we want to show you. I said we have 8 demos. That's 4. The next one, Ratmir Timoshev alluded to in his keynote this morning, and that is something that we have promised our customers for a long while and is one of the flagship features of V10. And that's, is it just NAS backup, Anton?
No,
what is
it's
it?
actually not just NAS backup. Yeah, we always call this feature NAS backup. In reality, we will also support other data sources. For example, whoops.
On the slide.
Can we go back to the slide? I don't have a back button. Thank you. All right, so yeah, we don't just support, of course, we support SMB and NFS file shares as a data source, but we also provide the ability to use Windows and Linux servers directly as data sources, right, if that makes better sense for you. And frankly, it should provide better performance than in some cases, right? If you can do that, it's even better this way. So yeah, as Ratmir said, took us a while. By the time we'll release it, will have taken us 2 years. The reason is that we decided, after trying and failing, we decided to build the unstructured data storage engine from ground up by ourselves, right? Because we wanted really this engine to be future-proof and to scale to petabytes of data and billions of files. But the challenge we have is that we need this storage system to work on any backup storage whatsoever, whatever our customers have, right? And that's a big challenge, really the performance metrics of different storage systems are vastly different, so we had to account for that in the design. Also, with the way we approached that, we didn't just fork some NoSQL database that many of our competitors choose to do, right? Instead, we built our own NoSQL database that's actually optimized not only to store the metadata about the files, but the actual data as a part of the database, right? Normally, we would have a separate NoSQL database with metadata and some storage that contains the actual data. But that would require the storage to be very performant, and for most customers, that means buying the new storage boxes. So, of course, on top of that, on top of the design that I'm very proud about and performance metric we're seeing, we're very happy about them. We also put lots of attention in restores, because that's what we're going to do in NAS backups. You want to protect against ransomware, and you want to restore it very quickly. So how about we see that, Danny? Right.
Yeah, so in order to show NAS backup, I'd like to introduce Senior Global Technologist Michael Cade. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. So I got told that I was going to be following what Anthony just showed, and I'm showing NAS backup, right? So what better way than creating my own ransomware attack on my own file share? Maybe that will work. So here's my file share. Very simple to add to the Veeam console, but just to show that this is live, here's a blog post that's gone out on Veeam.com. Everyone can read that. You can see the images. It all looks very lovely. Big plug for Veeam Data Labs at that point as well. Now what I'm going to do is from that desktop, I should have my little ransomware treat to run.
This is another one that we shouldn't try at home, I presume.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this doesn't infect everyone else's demos, so hopefully we'll keep everything self-contained. But you might have just seen, I just ran that little PowerShell script, and if we go in here, you've seen everything's just been modified. If I now try and open that machine, not very good, probably not going to publish that on Veeam.com. Okay, so if we jump into Veeam, you can see where Anton was saying it's very easy to add in those shares, whether it's an SMB, NFS, or file server. But let's get to the point of actually recovering some data from there. But what you'll notice is it's very user-friendly from a wizard-driven approach, like everything else we do at Veeam. So if we kick that off, you'll see 3 different restore functions. Now, in this instance, we could use a restore the entire share. That's going to take a little bit more time because we're going to lift and shift everything from our backup into the source where we need it. So we don't really need to do that in this case. We could also go into the individual files and folders, and we can manually choose each individual file that we know has been infected. Or we can use this middle option, which is the ability to roll back to a specific point in time. So anything that's modified from the backup or the restore point that we have, we're going to roll everything back. So it's going to be very fast. We keep that in that cache repository that Anton spoke about, and it allows us to recover everything back. Now, fingers crossed it does recover everything back. So what I'm doing here is I'm loading the restore points. At this point, as soon as it loads those restore points. Now, these restore points are the metadata that's stored in that cache repository. We can also go back to a specific point in time, and this is a visual that tells you what those files look like within that file share. So you can see when they were all modified, very different to what we just saw from the encryption that I just ran. We can also choose where we restore that to. So I want it to go to the original location. I want to preserve the permissions and ownership. You see that that's the default option, but we could send them to a new share. So let's get on with this. You can see that it's going to roll back to 926, which was just before I walked out here. That's convenient. So what you can see here is this is going to go through the metadata and check what's changed on the production to the actual backup file. You'll also see in here the modified data, or the modified date, should automatically change back to the time it was before. You might have just seen that. So if we now open this document, we're back to how we were before. Now, to go back into so that's pretty cool, right?
Yes.
The next option, so we've got that restore ribbon up the top. And again, those in the room that are familiar with Veeam, we put in different context menus all over the console. So we can also do, if we find the restore point that we want, then we can choose that same 3 options to restore from. I also want to show the ability and the granularity that we can get with the backup browser and the granular file and folder recovery. So as you'd expect, we're going to mount, again, the metadata that allows us to see what's inside. We can then take that and we can restore that. That's pretty good, yeah. But we can also, within this same window, we can choose an additional storage restore point. So we can go back to a specific point in time. But my absolute favorite feature of this is being able to go all time. So this will load all of the metadata that we have in that cache repository. And now we can start to see the different file versions that we have within that NAS file share. So you can see here, we can see here that I have multiple versions of that file share. We've got 2 different types in there, and we can drill down into that. Now, if we wanted this file to go back, we would ultimately have all of our different versions listed here, but also the ability and the location. So you can see that this is already tiered into an archive tier. So the one thing that I need to show from a backup job wizard is, again, very similar to what we do from a VMware Hyper-V backup, is the ability to choose and have that same wizard-driven approach. We can choose that. But what we also have the concept is short-term retention, so really fast recovery, as close to the production data as possible. But then also we understand that you may want to keep a longer-term retention. So you can tier this off into an object storage repository or a simple repository. We're completely agnostic, and you can pick and choose where you store that. Also within the same job, we can define backup copy job. So you don't have to go and create another backup copy job in an individual wizard. You can do it all from here, and you can also set a different retention wizard with that, with a separate encryption. And that gives you a little bit more insider protection if there's any malicious activity within there, or people like me that like creating ransomware scripts that could infect NAS shares. Cheers, Danny.
All right, thanks, Michael. I saw some raised hands there clapping for NAS backup. This truly is differentiating, and we're not getting into the technology behind it, but the caching that we're doing with NoSQL actually is optimized for this type of NAS backup, isn't it?
And yeah, and the best thing is that NoSQL database I keep referring to is infinitely scalable because it scales by simply adding more extents to your scale-out repository. And when you add these extents, you're not only adding capacity for the backups, you're also adding compute to make that NoSQL data more powerful. Does make sense? So it's very, very easy to scale, right?
So that's not all. Instant recovery to vSphere.
Yeah. So the next thing, and again, I like to introduce this issue by talking about our agents, right? So when we introduced Veeam Agent for Windows and Linux a couple of years ago, you know, we've been seeing very, very nice adoption trends, very good business for Veeam. And that is basically despite the fact that most of our customers today are very highly virtualized. 80 to 90% virtualization is normal for a Veeam customer, right? So still, many of those customers have at least a few physical servers, and agents fit perfectly for them to complete the entire protection of the entire environment. Sorry. So actually, a funny thing, it's not the only use case for agents we're finding, not just those few physical remaining boxes. Our largest agent customers are using them to protect literally thousands of Azure and AWS infrastructure as a service VMs. That's actually something we want to fix because it works perfectly, but there is a better way to do it. So stick around until the end of the presentation, and we'll announce how we're fixing that. But in any case, the main point here is that the most common requests from the customers who started using agents for their remaining physical servers were faster recoveries. And this is understandable, right? Because these requests are actually coming from businesses, from their businesses who are already used to the luxury of having instant VM recovery. And for them, anything slower than 5-minute recovery is not acceptable anymore, right? So in V10, we're delivering just that. But to make it more interesting demo, actually, my next 2 slides are on Rick's laptop. So how about we continue the demonstration from Rick's laptop? Rick?
Okay, Anton. So what we're looking at here is this actual device. Now, by the way, all these demos are same lab thus far, right? We're very brave. But I have DFS going on this system.
I'm thirsty.
Desktop file system. But on this desktop here, you can see I've got my pictures of very interesting things. You're blowing my cover there, Anton. But basically, what I have here is this is a PowerPoint about Veeam Agent for Windows. This agent is installed on here. I'm backing this up with Veeam. And I'm going to do something with this that we have existing, as Anton explained. And now we have something new. And this very system, this is something we did not practice.
Nobody ever in the history of technical IT conferences practiced this, so.
We didn't practice. Oh,
okay. So.
Do you buy, yeah, I think Lenovo
don't touch it, Anton. Don't touch it. But it is all good. It is, because this same lab, and as we're going to switch over to the other laptop here, right before we started, this is 15, right before we started, we launched, there we go, I was getting a little worried.
I'm alive.
This,
okay.
This same agent, I did an instant restore of this agent at 3:15, right before the doors opened, did the prep with VMware tools and the like, and basically, this very same system is right here, okay? So here's that same wonderful weather, my DFS, all of that is still there. So basically, if I am to carry this thought through, if I take this instant recovery of any backup to the next level, what you just saw here was very powerful. This is something that people have wanted. So I had that laptop, which I'm not going to be able to incur any more restore points, being backed up to a Veeam backup and replication repository with the Veeam Agent for Windows. That laptop's backup was accessible in the console for Veeam backup and replication, what you're seeing right here. And I don't know if you've ever had to do PowerPoint in the vSphere web console, but it's a little funky, I'll tell you that. But basically, with that backup in that console, I was able to do that restore, just momentary. Nothing took over a minute. That's what the zeros mean, by the way. It just was running out of real estate. And then it's accessible to VMware, and I have done that instant recovery, and that is the same image running in the same lab that we've run ransomware, cloud recoveries, VAO, just like that, and that's a new capability coming, Anton. And I think that is absolutely outstanding, and it is a long list of capabilities to vSphere, to Hyper-V, bare metal, to the Azure and EC2, as well as exporting to the different virtual disk formats. So this is a very portable technique, Anton, and I'm sure a lot of these people are going to like it.
Yeah. So again, this is the restore of any backup whatsoever that Veeam solution can provide. Hyper-V, HV, Linux, Windows, all of that is supported directly to a VMware VM within a few minutes. Cool?
Yes.
All right.
Rick, I hope you're not planning to expense that laptop on your next expense. Okay. All right. So the last thing we want to show, Anton, is data integration. You want to share with the audience a little bit about what we've done for data integrations?
Yeah. So again, I like to say that for us, a big focus has always been to enable you to put your backups to work, right? Because frankly, yeah, we do the recoveries often, but not so often. And sometimes it can be weeks while your backup infrastructure is just doing its job, but literally sitting idle and not doing what you bought it to do, not doing any actual restores. So you have this huge investment in backup infrastructure, and we wanted you to, put it to use, put it to good use. And we've been working on that for many years. We've been, since version 5, we have the capability called on-demand sandbox that allows you to spin up a copy of production environment directly from last night's backup or whatever date you choose in an isolated, totally isolated environment that we provision and manage for you, so you don't have to create and worry about isolation, worry about another DC popping up, a copy of DC popping up on your environment. So we take care of that. Extremely popular solution for our customers, and we've since been enhancing that, adding support for doing the same, not just for backups, but also from replicas. Most recently from storage snapshots, supported for those 20 vendors, so we really enhanced that. But what about you want something much simpler, but equally useful, right? And that is the ability to quickly access the raw content of the selected restore point and make it available, for example, make it available to any third-party application. That would be really nice, and that's what's coming in version 10. And I know Danny is particularly excited about this functionality due to his security background. So Danny?
Yeah, this is an exciting one for me because I always say the first step on that journey is backup. But we back up so that we can do more. And if I can provide access to this data to third parties, to partners that specialize in security, to partners that specialize in compliance, data classification, e-discovery, then I can help the business move further and faster than they were able to before. And so in order to show you how simple we've made this, the same way it was simple to do all of the things, we've made data integrations with third parties really, really simple in our platform. And to show this, I'd like to go back to Niels Engelen. Niels?
All right, thank you, Danny. So I don't have a laptop to trash, unfortunately, but I do have this access to the same lab as Rick has. And when we announced this feature, I was like, oh, this is cool, I can use it for analytics and analyzing big data or do, artificial intelligence stuff. I was already thinking about making like a virtual reality tool where I can virtualize my backups and what's in there. But initially I was thinking, okay, how am I going to use this API? So the easiest way to use it is by leveraging PowerShell. Now, I'm not going to go into deep dive how this works, but what it is. But what I do in this PowerShell script is I look literally in my backups, and I take every backup disk I have, which is around 10 virtual disks. And what will happen is if I start this, there's a lot of text coming at the bottom, but you're probably going to wonder, like, I don't understand this. So I'll make it more clear. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking in all my backup files, and I'm taking the backup disks from there, and you will see slowly in the bottom, the first virtual server or the first virtual machine is appearing, and at the top, the disks will appear slowly. Now, what's really impressive about this is, while I'm doing this on my VBR server, I can do this to any server. So as Danny said, any third-party application can just leverage this, take the data from those disks, and start analyzing this. Now, as Rick had a backup of his laptop he just trashed, I was wondering, maybe he has some personal details on there. Now, I figured out, you know what, I'll just use some free tool I found on the internet, which allows me to search for credit card information, right? We all want credit card information. So this is it live, and it's actually going to look into his backup file. And guess what? There is some content in there. There's a file called cards. And if you look at the text, you can actually find some American Express numbers. Now,
we can pay for the laptop.
We can pay for the laptop, that's the whole point. So the idea is not to search for credit card numbers in your company's backups. Well, you could. But the idea here more is that you can open it up to any solution, right? Like I said, analytics, data mining, this is literally impressive data mining right here. I mean, I'm very sure that Danny is already writing down all the credit card numbers and going to use them later on at the party. But it's just the ID. And in the meantime, while this is searching for the files or for the data cards, you can see in the background I've mounted around 6-7 disks out of all those backups. So it is really fast. It took, I mean, what, 2 minutes to look into the data. So imagine if you're doing this with multiple virtual machines. I'm very sure that by the time this is available, you can mount 100 virtual machines in just 5 minutes. Right, Anton?
Yep. And you can publish this disk to any server. So if you have an application server already with some fancy data analytics installed, part of this command let you can just say, but mount that to that server, and we'll automatically provision a SCSI connection and mount the disk to that server so that it just works, just sees the new disks, and can go ahead directly and analyze that data. Right?
What do you think? Impressive?
Yeah. So it really puts the data at your fingertips, right? And makes it very accessible.
Yeah. I love this because it unlocks data, right? All those data, all that data that was stored in Raj Parimal's systems for 30 years, we can unlock it to begin to do analysis. We can do security, we can do classification. We can actually help the business to move faster. Now, is there anything more in V10 that we should talk about?
Yeah, I think so, because the slides are so. So yeah, we showed you, like, again, it's just 4 new capabilities of version 10. Again, the whole training takes 2 days. We had 30 minutes, so trust me, there are much more, and we'll be talking about the new capabilities more capabilities more as we're approaching the release. But today we also wanted to introduce something bigger than just another feature. So remember how I said that our largest agent customers are actually using them to protect AWS and Azure infrastructure service VMs. That works perfectly for them. They've been doing that for years, since the agents existed, right? But there has got to be a better way than putting an agent in each VM. There is got to be a way that you protect those Azure and AWS VMs natively, agentlessly, like just like we do with VMware and Hyper-V, right? And to introduce this new product, I want to invite Mike Resser, the product manager for this new Veeam offering, to the stage to give us a sneak peek peer review of that product. Oh, you're already here. This guy is fast.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Anton. All right, I'm really, really excited to show you the first sneak preview of this new solution. Now, please bear with me. I was really jealous about these guys doing demos on beta software. Unfortunately, mine is alpha, so things can go wrong. But we'll try. What you're seeing here is our web-based UI, and it's actually an appliance running in Microsoft Azure as we speak. Now, I'm looking at the instances window, and basically what you're seeing here is all of the virtual machines in a specific subscription. Now, you can add multiple subscriptions, you can obviously do scoping and so on, but in my case, you see a couple of my virtual machines that are running in my very small, humble subscription that I never get expensed from Anton, so that's why this is only what you see. Now, what you can see here are a couple of virtual machines. You also see that some of them are protected. They've got a backup policy attached to it. They've got a policy status. We've got a couple of generation, which are the amount of restore points you have. And then you can see much more data. Where are we storing it? We've got snapshot. We've got Azure Blob, and I'll explain that in a second. And we got some more data. But that's not important for this moment. Now let me jump to one of these policies and just, I'm not going to create a new one. I'm simply going to use one and edit one for the sake of time. And when I click edit, you can see here the name, the description, typical things that you see everywhere in Veeam. And here you got some settings. We've got the amount of restore points, or generations as they're called here. And this is a really cool feature that you're seeing right here, the copy to Azure Blob Storage. And remember what Radmir has said, remember what Danny has said, one of the things we're truly proud of is the portability of our backups. Because what we're doing here is taking the native snapshot technology from Microsoft Azure, which is our backup, and then we can copy that snapshot, transform it in your known and loved Veeam backup or application format, and move it to another own chosen storage, which makes it truly portable. Afterwards, you can do direct restore to Azure again. You can offload it if you want to. You can basically do with that backup whatever you want, just like you can do with those backups on premises today. And then we got some more options, but again, in this interest of time, I'm not going to go over there. More importantly is how am I going to select my resources? And we've done some smart things here. First, you can choose all of your subscriptions. You can choose a specific subscription, or you can go the good old manual way and choose a specific virtual machine or a specific virtual machine disk. Or you might be using resource groups, or you might be using Azure tags. And based on that, you can completely automate these policies, and whatever you're doing, whatever you're changing, it will be picked up automatically by these policies, which is really handy for you when you restore virtual machines, for example, from on-premises straight to the cloud, add a tag, and it will automatically protect it again. Now, one of the things I also wanted to show you is the schedules. And why do I want to show you this? Because you can actually select multiple schedules, making it very easy to protect those machines whenever you want based on your settings. And speaking of these schedules, let me quickly go and edit one here as well. You'll probably recognize those if you've worked with Veeam before, because it's got the typical options you can choose. You can do daily, you can do monthly, you've got all these kind of options. Bringing then different schedules together really gives you a powerful way of protecting whatever you need and you want. All right, let's go back to policies, and let's take, for example, this one, which I just added you, and simply run it. So I can say start, I can go to backup monitor, and you can actually see it running right here. And while it's running, I can see all of the different steps that are being taken. The backup creation has finished. We're taking a local backup, and so on and so forth. So all of this is working. Now, obviously, what is a backup without a good restore, right? Now, we're going to have multiple options to do restores, and what I'm going to show you today is one of them. I'm going to go back to instances, and this is always a scary moment in this alpha build. Will it show up again? Please. Uh-oh. How much time do I have left, Danny?
2 seconds.
We're here, just in time. So we got our virtual machines here, and I'm going to take one of these, VeeamON demo 03. It has one successful backup. I'm going to say restore. Select a restore point. So normally, if you have more generations, you're going to see here more. And you will be able to see that I can actually restore it to different subscriptions, different locations or regions. I can start making changes here, restore, something like that. Change the virtual machine size, maybe move it to another resource group. I can do exclusions, which means if I have a data disk which I don't need for this specific restore, I can exclude it to make it faster, and so on and so forth. The same with all of these disks, and you can see actually that this is a managed disk compared to the unmanaged disk, which is still used from time to time. And let me just put here restore after as well, so I can delete them afterwards. Same restore group. You can change the network, obviously a reason, and you know what, I'm not going to care. And let me simply click finish, and then go to recovery monitor, see that we are restoring as this problem, leave it running like that, and give the word back to Danny.
Thank you, Mike. That was excellent. A hand for Mike Ressler. So you just saw the how, but why did we do this? As Anton said, I was talking to a customer last night, 2,000 plus VMs actually in Microsoft Azure using agents. This gives them cloud native backup for that environment, and it enables hybrid cloud. So if they have things on premises and in the cloud, it allows that connection between the two.
Yeah. So just to recap, again, what we're delivering from the big things. Fully automating 3-to-1 rule, removing any management overhead. You just make the copies of backups as they appear on performance tier to object storage. And that is without losing the capability of tiering, so that when your backup age out of your operational restore window, we can completely remove them from performance tier, but they will stay on the object storage for as long as your retention is set. NAS backup, everybody wants it. Finally coming, yeah?
Yes, finally coming.
Instant recovery to vSphere. In 90% of our customers, 80 to 90% using vSphere, right? They want this flexibility, we deliver that. API, putting your data in the fingerprints, new way of doing backups in Azure, new and better way, frankly, much better. And 1.5 days more of features, if we had the training from them. So, version 10?
Version 10, and what do you think? So what we've shown to you today is the whole journey, really, right? Backup to the cloud, recovering cloud, protecting cloud, backup for Office 365, support for the service providers that drive this transformational journey for you. All of this is about cloud. And so our focus, intense focus, not only in 2019, but into 2020, is to take that cloud data and to unlock, not just protect it, but unlock it for your business so that you can do more, so that you can back up for what's next. And so, very excited to have you here. Thank you very much. If you have any questions afterward, Anton and myself are always happy to talk to our customers. Thank you.
Let's welcome everybody to Planet Pit and show them what worldwide music is. They call me Mr. Worldwide.